It kept growing. It kept growing throughout the years. He was there for me when I was down there. He was. And the guy's special. I know people make jokes about him, the injuries and the bike and all that stuff, which I think, because this guy did everything possible to be on the field. And, he's pitching on Wednesday. And I can't wait for him to get back to Fenway and get the ovation he deserves, because out of all the guys here that have been part of this since 2018 all the way till now, he went through the up and downs, and he took his punches. But like I always said, nobody can take away that ring from 18.
Okay, that's Alex Cora again on Chris Sale, who will be facing the Red Sox tonight in Atlanta for the first time since the Red Sox traded him to the Braves during the offseason for Vaughn Grissom. That's where we're going to start tonight on the Baseball Hour, 617-779-0985. Phone lines are open. Jared Carrabis is here, as he is every Wednesday. And Jared is presented by Blue Moon Belgian White. Be sure to relax and enjoy the ball game with Blue Moon Belgian White. That's Blue Moon, born in a ballpark and brewed for baseball. We have a full 1 hour program tonight on the Baseball Hour. The Bruins pregame begins at 7 o'clock, goes for 30 minutes, followed by Game 2 of the Bruins and Florida Panthers in their Eastern Conference semifinal series, all right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. And, in fact, we have a ton of programming for you this week between the Bruins and the Celtics, both in the playoffs. Just one of those springs that in some ways is uniquely Boston. And if things go the way they have for the Bruins thus far in that series, and it's only been one game, but you get the idea, we could see a scenario where both teams are playing for the conference championship in the next couple of weeks, all right here on 98.5. So again, Jared Carrabis in studio, 617-779-0985. And I opened Jared tonight with this. It's a question I asked on the website today as well. We started touching on it in last night's program, and it relates to Chris Sale. Because frankly, by the way, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tom?
Good, thank you.
You look good.
Sorry, there was a big preamble. So I asked this question last night. I ask it again because I think it is, in all seriousness, he's a really kind of unique and fascinating case in a lot of ways when you ask this question. And the Red Sox have had some great starters here over the last, call it, 40 years. I mean, you go back to Roger Clemens in the mid-'80s, from 1984 to now, and Clemens really blossomed in 86, as we all know. But let me start there. It has been Clemens, Pedro, Schilling, Beckett, John Lester, now a gap, and then if you want to go on, David Price, Chris Sale. So there was a little gap in there, just a little bit, although Lester, certainly was here in 2015, then they traded him away. But the Red Sox really have had frontline aces, I would call them, for the better part of 2-3 generations now. For an organization that's been known for hitting, and again, some of these guys have been brought in. They weren't products of the Red Sox farm system, but you get the idea. And really starting with Pedro, if you look at it and you say Pedro, Schilling, Beckett, Lester, and then Price and Sale, they all won championships. Every single one of them. And I would say they all had a significant hand in winning a championship.
Clemens could have.
Okay, Clemens could have, but
twice.
Did not. Right.
They didn't finish in 86, and he had the chance to come back in 07, and he went back to the Yankees. Okay. He didn't make the playoffs.
So he had a chance.
No, he did, but they got bumped.
But we hold some of those guys in sort of unique standing. Like you look at it and say, and this is another point to me that is important. Chris Sale was here 7 years. 7 years, same length of time that Pedro was. Same length of time, basically. He's here longer than Schilling. I think Beckett was here 6 years, maybe, somewhere in that area.
06 to halfway through 12.
Okay, so again, 7, I guess, if you want to call it that. And then Lester was here 9. But you get the idea. Sale was here a long time. Yet I don't look at him the same way I look at Pedro, or I look at Schilling even, who was only here for 4, or even Beckett, who was absolutely dominant in 07. To me, so let me ask you, what is his legacy? How do you remember, or will you remember, a Chris Sale or the Chris Sale era, and how should fans look at him?
Well, it's a loaded question to kind of piggyback off of what you were just talking about with the guys that you mentioned. There's a reason why in your mind he's not in the same tier as those guys, is because he didn't do what those guys did. He in 2017, that first year, that was one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant pitching seasons that we've seen since Pedro. Like when you're talking about 99, 2000, basically till like 02 with Pedro, those were like some of the most dominant seasons ever. We haven't seen anything like that until Sale in 17. But when you look at the Pedro had multiple all-time great single seasons. Sale had one. Beckett put the team on his back in 07 and probably should have won the Cy Young Award that year. Whereas the 18 run, you just heard Alex Cora talk about it. He recorded the first out of the season. He recorded the last. That dominant ninth inning to close out the World Series, we'll always remember that. But he didn't put the Red Sox on his back in that postseason run. He was, I don't want to call him a non-factor because that's not true. He was a factor, but he wasn't the guy that they thought that they were getting in 18 because of the injuries and the injury that we still don't even really know what happened because they were so weird about it. Mm-hmm. And then he got paid the following year and was never the same. So he was a shooting star. Injuries
are a big part of it.
If Chris Sale, I would feel totally different about it if Chris Sale had the 2017 regular season and 2018 followed by the postseason run, because then you could kind of match it up with Beckett. Beckett was an every other year guy. 2006, I want to say he led the league in home runs allowed and maybe earned runs at the same time.
He got hit hard that year.
But then he came back and won 20 games. So, yeah, I think you have to have that dominant season in the championship year. I think Schilling in 04 won 20 games, if not 19. These guys that you've listed, like John Lester did it in the playoffs, and he had a 19-win season and like 09 or whatever it was. They all had their single year of dominance, and then they dominated in the playoffs. Sale had his 1 year of dominance, was kind of a factor, but didn't dominate in that championship year, and then was never the same again after that.
So one of the things Alex Cora said in that comment, and again, if you're a baseball fan out there, a Red Sox fan, this is one of the better nights for you to call, 617-779-0985, because we have a full 1 hour show. But Cora said at one point, I'm looking forward to Sale being at Fenway Park, getting cheered, getting a standing ovation or whatever when he returns, which will be in a month. I think it's June 4th and 5th that the Braves are in here, basically 4 weeks from now. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday. So he'll be in town then. Are you convinced he's going to get cheered?
Yeah, absolutely. You win a championship in Boston, you're getting cheered no matter what, unless you go to the Yankees. But even those guys, like Ellsbury, whatever, Damon got booed, but there were some people cheering. I was there that day, May 1st, 2006. But yeah, he's definitely going to get a huge standing ovation. It's not his fault that he got hurt. It was it was like the man was cursed, because some of the stuff that was happening with him was just by circumstance. The comebacker off of his hand. It's like, what are you going to do
in
about
New York,
something
yep.
like that? Yeah. It's not like he was Pablo Sandoval showing up out of shape. The guy was rail thin his entire career. You can't be like, hey, go put on some that's what he's always been. Like, you can't blame him for that. He's going to get a huge ovation. And
okay.
I think he deserves it.
So this is the reason I ask, and I'm not telling you that Sale was ever quote unquote hated by the fan base, because I don't think he was.
They were frustrated.
But I do think that he became a symbol in a lot of ways of things that were going wrong. And it turned into I don't want to call it a comedy every year, because it was hardly a comedy as far as Sale was concerned. But when you look at, after his first 2 years here, both of which were pretty good. The first year, as you said, was dominant. He got hurt late in the second year. It was a shoulder injury initially, if I remember, although he was healthy enough to close out Game 5 of the World Series against the Dodgers in L.A. to seal up that World Series. Starting in the next season, which was the final year of his first contract before the extension kicked in. But he signed that deal in the spring of 19.
Correct.
Over his final 5 years with the Red Sox, Sale went 17-18 with a 4.16 ERA.
I would guess worse.
17-18 with a 4.16 ERA, and really didn't pitch all that much. He missed.
How many innings?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
But it wasn't, he came back to pitch in 2021, I think it was, and made 2 starts, might have been whatever. Okay, might have been 22. I don't remember because I don't have the timeline in front of me. So he missed all of 19. He basically missed all of 20. He pitched in a handful of games, and then in 22 when he came back, that was the year with the broken rib. That was the year where he got hit on the finger by the comebacker.
Yep.
So he pitched very little that year. Meanwhile, the Red Sox were paying him a fortune. The team had cut payroll in part because they were carrying sales salary. So I do think, Jared, that he became something of a symbol of the transformation from the Red Sox to a free spending team to one that was now much more cost conscious. And to your point, it's not his fault. But fans don't always look at it that way.
No.
Fans always look at it and say they're paying this guy $29 million a year, and that was the raw number. That was the average. On the luxury tax, he counted for about 25 because it was deferred money in there. But even so, they looked at it, and oftentimes he's the guy that becomes the source and target for people's anger and frustration. So I think some of that is attached to Sale. I'm not convinced he gets the cheers.
Oh, Tony.
I'm not saying he gets booed.
You're on a heater of bad takes today. They're going to play the highlight reel of 18.
They come
and
in
all the
bunches,
strikeouts. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I understand. People will have their opinions about Sale afterwards, and when we look back and have the legacy talk, you can't have the legacy talk without bringing up all the bad stuff. And there was arguably more bad than good. But he's going to come back. They're going to play a video. They're going to show the 2018 World Series. They're going to show him punching out Machado. The place is going to go nuts. 40% of the Red Sox fans that are there compared to the 60% of Braves fans that are there. And, yeah, he's going to get his standing ovation. At no point during that are they going to be like, yeah, but, he got hurt and he didn't pitch the last 5 years. They're going to look and they're going to see the championship moments and they're going to cheer, and then that's it.
Okay, so let me ask you this point blank, though, in 2 very pointed questions. Mm-hmm. Was the trade worth it?
Which one?
The Chris Sale trade.
Yeah. Any trade, anytime. I mean, look at what Michael Kopech and Yohan Moncada have become. Are you missing out on anything over there? No.
Was the contract worth it?
No, of course not.
Okay.
No, the contract wasn't worth it. The trade was 1,000% worth it for the 2017 season and the championship that you got that he very much contributed to. And you have to also consider, and this is the stuff that Cora's talking about, the impact that he had on the guys that are here right now. He still calls Cutter and Houck and guys like that. He's still helping the Red Sox now, even though he's with the Braves. So that stuff, it's not like, the trade was worth it because he helped out Cutter Crawford. No, but that's also part of it.
You can see, though, where I see the dilemma, right? Sale, the majority of time Sale was here, he was useless. The large majority of the time.
But that's the contract. That's Dombrowski.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But again, this is part of the Chris Sale story.
Also,
for 5 years there, he gave you nothing.
It's revisionist history because it was widely celebrated when it was announced that the Red Sox extended Chris Sale.
Not by me, it wasn't.
Yeah, you don't celebrate anything, Tony.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not
When's
true.
the last time you said that you were happy about something sports-related?
No, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But that is
Jared, the next time might be the first time.
Yeah.
That was one of those, right away, I remember saying, why couldn't they wait till the end of the season on this? This was a mistake.
That's fair.
I said that at the time.
That's it. At the time, it was fair to say, why now? You could have waited. That's fair. But I'm saying from the fan reaction, people were excited that he got paid. And they were like, okay, we're going to keep our ace. We don't have to, draft and develop one. We know we can't do that. That hasn't happened since Clemens or Lester or whatever. People were excited about it when it happened. I very much remember that. But to your point, they could have waited. It's fine.
617-779-0985 on the Baseball Hour. We'll get to your calls and more with Jared next.
He strikes out Turner. Good block by Vasquez, who gets an angle for the throw. 1 out. 4-run game. 3-2 pitch. Breaking ball struck him out. The Red Sox are 1 out away. And that'll bring in Manny Machado. Here comes a 1-2 pitch. Red Sox win the World Series. 5-1 the final tonight. And the best team in baseball wins it all.
That doesn't matter.
5-1, Tony.
5-1, came in out of the bullpen. Cora went to him. He strikes out Manny Machado to end the game. It was a slider down, I think, that Machado went to one knee and swung right over, if I remember right.
Was that his ankles?
It was it was a nasty pitch. And that was it.
Piqué look even worse than that inning. It was bad. He bullied them.
Yeah, he was, again, that game was, the Red Sox blew it open. Steve Pearce had 2 home runs in that game, if I remember right. Ended up being the MVP of the series. I won some money off of that.
There you go.
But the other thing I just want to mention about Sale, and then we'll get to your phone calls as well. He wasn't exactly as dominant in the postseason as some of the other guys we've talked about. And, Pedro was good in the postseason. Schilling was terrific. Beckett was good. Lester was good. Sale career in the postseason with the Red Sox.
Well, I know where you're going with this, but do you remember 2017?
That was in Houston.
Right. Well, it was at Fenway. Yeah. So it's I don't know.
I see what you're saying. He pitched badly in Houston, came back, pitched again, and pitched better, and they blew the game.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm just giving you the overall numbers. 1-3, 6.35.
What was you got to give me 18 though. What was 18 overall?
So I don't have that in front of me. I just did the aggregate numbers.
Yeah.
1-3, 6.35.
In 2018, Chris Sale was 4-1, 15 innings pitched, a 4.11 ERA.
Okay.
That's not great, but
4-1's 4-1, but they beat everybody that postseason. Didn't matter.
200 batting average against.
Yeah. He was still throwing the ball pretty well then.
Yeah.
But those, he was not a durable guy. That part is indisputable to me.
Not until he got here.
But in any case, honestly, I think they ruined it. Jimmy, just quickly before we get to the phones, what's your theory on what went wrong with Chris Sale?
Injuries.
Yeah, no. But you said something yesterday that I thought was particularly poignant when you said someone left him out there to get his 300 strikeouts in 2017, and it ended up doing damage to him that was never really fixed.
Oh, yeah, John Farrell, who's fishing now.
So I think he had a history of fading in the second half. It was true when he was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the Red Sox didn't manage him properly, and I think it probably is part of the reason why he burned out when he did.
We had 313 strikeouts in 2017?
308, maybe, something like that. Might have been 313.
I think it was 313.
Because Pedro had 308, and that was the record, and Sale broke it. That's what it was. Anyway, Jim and Whitman. Jim, what do you got? Jim, are you there?
You're very knowledgeable of baseball, man. The thing I have is I think there's one guy you're leaving out that helped the Red Sox greatly win in the postseason. It's the right-handed pitcher, Derek Lowe.
Yeah. No, again, listen, but this I wasn't really trying to hide. Thank you for the call.
We're talking about dominant aces. Derek Lowe in 2004, first pitcher to ever win every clinching game in all 3 rounds.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. In the division series, in the LCS, and in the World Series, he won the final game all 3 times.
Yeah, didn't have his cleats for the ALCS. Had to run down to Bob's, go get some Reeboks.
He won Game 7 on 2 days of rest.
Yeah.
Red Sox were hoping he could go like 4 innings, 5 tops. I think he went 6 scoreless.
Wasn't even supposed to be in the rotation in 2004 in the playoffs.
But that's sort of a separate question. He wasn't the ace of the staff. I'm not telling you. But my question really concerns Sale. And to fans, to Red Sox fans, how will you remember him? How will you remember him?
It's
2
parts. It's 2 parts. You will remember him for the moments that they're going to show on the video board, and you will remember how it ended with 5 years of injuries and kind of what we talked about last week when I mentioned Casas and how, if the Red Sox try to sell us on, hey, at the deadline we're getting Casas back, so we don't have to make a huge splash because we're getting a huge impact player. That was Chris Sale for the last 5 years. It'd be like, yeah, well, we're going to get Chris Sale in the second half, and now we go. And that was kind of fell on deaf ears. That's what I'm going to remember. I'll remember the first 2 years of dominance and championship, and then the 5 years of wait till Chris Sale gets back, and then sometimes he came back and he was good. Sometimes he came back and he got hurt again. So that's what I'll remember.
Ryan in Burlington, how will you remember the Chris Sale era?
Hey guys, long time listener, first time caller. Thanks for having me on. I'm a big. I love Chris Sale. I mean, he really did. He had a lot of injuries, no doubt, as you said, Tony. No fault of his own, but I really need to call because you've kept talking about his legacy. If I go to that game, I'll be cheering him. I'm going to remember him for the good memories in the first 2 years. Obviously, not in the level of a Pedro, a Lester, a Schilling. The longevity's just not there. But he was a guy who never made excuses, had accountability. By all accounts, a good teammate in the locker room. He didn't go to an arch rival. And I know that second contract, absolutely brutal. But if I'm there, I'm going to be cheering him. I agree with Jared that most Red Sox fans probably feel the same way. And I'll let you guys take it from here. Thanks again.
So, again, I just think it's complicated. You know, he should be typically that guy who's at the front of the rotation is a slam dunk, standing ovation.
It is a slam dunk.
He was the guy that you built it around. You brought him in to win the championship. He delivered. Here's the standing O. He's immortalized.
Well, you're not factoring in that who's going to Fenway these days. It's the happy to be there people. The angry fans are not going. Like the people that would be upset about the last 5 years and the injuries and the frustration and all that, those people are not going to Fenway right now. Like I made this point on the podcast about how I forget the Giants series, when something good happened for the Giants and you could hear the Giants fans cheering. Back in my day, the Red Sox fans would boo to drown out the cheers of the opposing team's fans. That's not happening now because it's the happy-go-lucky fans that are going to the games, and the diehard, angry, passionate Red Sox fans are saying, screw it, we're not going until you put a better product on the field. I don't blame them, but yeah, it'll be the fans that'll just go and they'll cheer. And he deserves that. Like, I'm not saying that I want the angry mob to show up. No, like, Chris Sale deserves a standing ovation, and that's exactly what he'll get. I'll be shocked if there's one person booing.
What Fenway has become is a different story entirely.
Sucks.
Boy, what a sad story that is. Anyway, Kevin.
went out there. I figured when I ran out there and when I struck out the last guy, everyone started losing. I was like, oh, well, I guess
Didn't know that was the 300?
no idea. I knew I was close, but I didn't know that I needed just one more.
Sure, I said I didn't believe him.
You did.
I did say that, or I
think
did
we
believe
did a
him?
squeaky Maz about it.
Okay, I mean, how do you not know it's your 300 strikeout? Of course he knew.
Because you're Chris Sale and you're above it all.
I know. He just
It's not about individual numbers, Tony.
I know, but I do think he was a good team guy, Jimmy.
And it was
do.
against the Orioles, so it probably doesn't count as much as it should.
Right. Exactly. Not that gratifying. Is
Yes.
that what we're getting at, Jimmy?
At the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a question for Jared Carrabis on Alex Cora, but we'll get to that in a minute because I see a few of you lined up, a handful of you lined up, in fact. And I'll go so far as to say several of you lined up. So we'll get to your calls, then we'll get to Jared's. My question for Jared on Alex Cora, I just ask you to be succinct, which means direct and to the point.
Like a lightning round.
Eric at Reading. Eric, go ahead.
I remember Chris Sale fondly. Sure, he fell apart. He fell apart, but he's rail thin. He made Randy Johnson look fat. I mean, for the love of God, they ignored the red flags on him and extended him anyway. That's on the Sox, not Sale. I remember him fondly. He was the ace of staff on the 18 title team, and he was elite in 17. Thanks.
So, Eric, he thanks for the call. To me, he was, the durability problem was there his whole career. If you look at his career numbers in Chicago in the second half, he did tend to fade in August and September, which makes all the sense in the world. And I do agree with the idea that the Red Sox mismanaged it. I think that is a fair point. I think they leaned on him a little too hard. And that was I was surprised that Farrell, Jared, was a little reckless with him, for lack of a better term, because they were so careful.
Well, he was a dumbass.
Farrell was?
Yes.
Okay. So what's your
And the
history
players
there?
kind of hated him, too.
Oh, you have a history there with Farrell?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, we didn't get along.
Oh, well, there you go. Let's get to the meat of it. Why not?
I think because I definitely criticized him a lot, but I was right. I remember doing a bit where he used to bench Travis Shaw against lefties, but Travis Shaw had a 9-something OPS, and I would be like, dude, you can Google this stuff, right? It's and
the mayor of Ding Dong City.
Correct. Yeah. He would bench him against lefties. I was like, the dude mashes lefties. I feel like this is all stuff that you should have in hand. Yeah, there are a couple things where maybe we didn't see eye to eye on issues, and he hated me like poison. I remember there was you don't remember that where
There's a bullpen issue, too.
yeah, so I buried the lead in a blog. I wrote about Craig Kimbrell and his usage and how coaches went to Farrell.
I do remember this.
Yes, and then the station across the street, they brought it up to him. He didn't know that it was out there.
Neither did Dale, by the way.
Nobody, who was it?
It was Rich Keefe who brought it up to
Yeah.
John Farrell, and Dale's like, oh, I've never heard about, I don't even know who Jared Carrabis is. I don't know.
So then it turned into this big thing where Dave Dombrowski had to come up, and he was like, Barstool, I don't know that Barstool has very much credibility. And then Portnoy went after Dombrowski, and it started this warfare, and it was all because of a throwaway line in a blog that I wrote about.
Because
remember
Jared was
this.
right again.
I was right. Thank you.
Yeah, his usage. I remember that. That's right. Very good. Ray and Revere. Ray, what do you got?
I acknowledge.
Yeah, I'm going to remember Sale as an elite asset that was mismanaged. Guys, they had Pedro Martinez here, and he broke down at the 99 All-Star game, and organizationally they had him on a pitch count after that, and it came all the way down from the top, way above the manager. And that was the big gap and the big fail in this organization. Should have happened.
And not only that, it set a standard for how they operated going forward, which is why I was surprised that Farrell lapsed into it. Because even in the Farrell years, they learned how to manage Beckett. They learned how to manage Matsuzaka. They learned how to manage Lester. They would give him extra days at the All-Star break. They would get every guy a fifth day when they needed it. They wouldn't needlessly push him along. With Sale, they let him call the shots.
Especially towards the end. Do you remember last year when Sale first came back and his first few starts, Cora would just be like, yep, go out there for the 7th and the 8th. And when he was blowing 100, that was the other, when he was in Chicago, as a starter, he was throwing like 93, 94, and then in 17 and especially 18, right when he got hurt, he was throwing 100 miles an hour. And then everyone was like, "Oh man, like this is not what he did in Chicago. They're really letting him air it out," and then he ended up getting hurt.
Yeah, to me, it's no wonder he got hurt. Again, they really pushed him too hard, and he wasn't durable to begin with. Alex is in Florida. Alex, go ahead.
Hey guys, so I'm gonna remember Chris Sale as Gold Bottles, plain and simple. Gold Bottles. He's the man. Fond memories. We were actually good when he played for us.
True.
Poorly managed by the team. But I think he gave it his all every day. He gave the team everything he had, the city. But plain and simple, Gold Bottles. If I was there, I'd cheer for him. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So look, again, I'm not telling you to root one way or the other. I just think he's a complicated case. All those other guys, pretty cut and dried. And none of it was perfect. But there was, most of them all pitched all the way through. Schilling got hurt at the end, but his contributions were so great and indisputable that, frankly, I understand why he wasn't there, but the fact that he was not part of the 2004 celebration is really horrible. It was a major part of that team.
Well, it's his fault.
No, and I don't mean it that way. I mean that not having him there for whatever the reason was.
Yeah, the situation is horrible.
Yes, yeah. Terrible. I mean, that guy was a major, major part of that. Mark in Worcester. Mark, go ahead.
Jared and Tony, thanks for having me on. As a Worcester Red Sox season ticket holder, I'll remember the few times that he was forced to pitch for us and how great he was to all the members of the team and doing all kinds of things for the team, for the young kids. And I'll also remember what he did to the television after one of his starts out of frustration. It was intense.
Well, if you
but,
remember,
thanks for having me on.
If you remember, caller, the TV was already broken, and he was doing them a favor by ripping it off the wall.
Okay, is that the story?
That's a true story.
Okay, I believe you.
TV was already broken, and they were going to replace it, and that's why he ripped it off the wall.
Just felt like a little excessive for a rehab game in the minors.
Well, guy's competitive.
That's what it is. Yep. And he knew everyone was watching, too. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those, to me, where you're going a little too far.
Hall. No, that was down the hall. That wasn't a look at me thing.
Sure it wasn't. No. Mike and Salem. Mike, are you there?
Yep.
Go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm more like of a casual fan, I'd say. I follow the Sox more than I watch them. I remember Chris Sale more as like a scrawny dude who was hurt all the time. More so, that 2018 season, that championship, I don't think it was all that special. Baseball was kind of on the decline at that point. So I think I'd boo him if I was there.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about.
Oh God!
No. Listen,
you're gonna take that call seriously?
No. I'm not saying that I would join him in booing.
Yeah.
I would say that I think there are a lot of people though that look at Sale.
There's nobody like that. That wasn't a serious call, Tony.
Jared, the last 4 or 5 years.
That guy literally prefaced his comment by saying, "I don't really watch the Red Sox, so that's not the person that's gonna show up to be like, oh, like it's the people." Like I remember when I was a kid. Once the Red Sox won in 2004, I made sure that I was there at the game that everyone made their return because I wanted to give them a standing ovation. Everyone's going to give Chris Sale a standing ovation. This guy literally just said, I don't even really watch the Red Sox, but I guess I remember him as a guy that gets hurt, and like I would boo if I was there. It's like, well, you're not going to be there because you clearly just said you're a casual fan that doesn't really follow the team.
Do you think people looked at the dates on the calendar and said June 4th and 5th? Ooh, June 4th, that's when Sale's coming back. I'm going to go.
Not anymore. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm older now, but if I were still in high school, like I did that.
But no, I don't doubt that you did it. I just don't think anybody's doing it for Sale. I don't think and maybe it has more to do with the state of the Red Sox and their fandom. I just don't know that he was as important or regarded as important as some of those other guys.
Did I tell you that story about Pedro? What I would do. So I made it to every single return of the 04 team, but Pedro, I was working again at Bob's Stores, and I had to work that day. So I would always call out. I was always late. It was 2006. I was a junior in high school, so I was just like a 16-year-old punk or whatever. So I was like, all right, I can't miss Pedro's first time back at Fenway. So I showed up for my shift so that I wasn't late and I didn't call out. And I had a soda from Burger King. Went into the break room, and I took a thumbtack out of the bulletin board. I poked myself with it. I took an ice cube and held it over that so that it would get red and fluffy. And I went to my manager and I said, I just got stung by a bee. I'm allergic. I have to go to the hospital. And she's like, get the hell out of here. And then I went to Fenway for Pedro.
Very good, Jared.
Had to do it.
It's nice to know that you would take
dedication.
Those that is dedication. It's also a little psychotic.
Only for Pedro. Self-mutilation.
I want to ask you about Alex Cora too, because I have a theory. Well, I'm curious. I shouldn't say I have a theory. I have a question, really, as it pertains to Cora and his future in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, when they wrapped up the homestand against the Giants, a reporter was asking Cora about the overall homestand, despite the fact that the Red Sox lost the finale. And the question was something to the effect of, well, I know you lost today, but you still went 4-2, and it was a pretty good homestand. Cora cut her off to give this answer. Go ahead, Jimmy.
It was a great homestand. It wasn't better. It was great. So, yeah, we play good baseball. We pitch well. We play clean baseball. So, like I said, swimming at this level is very hard, and they're good. They have a good team. So now we got Minnesota, and we try to do the same thing on the road.
Okay, so again, she says it's a good homestand.
It was a great homestand.
It was a great homestand. It was a great homestand. They went 4-2. They didn't go 6-0. No, and I'm not mocking Cora for it. I just think it speaks to his state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he seems to be in a better place than he was certainly a year ago. Why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
I think he's at peace. I think he knows that, he's good either way, whether he's here next year or he's not. If he's here, then great. He gets to stay in a place where he's built a legacy. If he's not here, he's going to be a very, very rich man. I think he's going to be a very rich man either way.
Yep. That I would agree with.
Yeah, so I think he's just kind of at peace with whatever's going to happen.
So if I were to ask you before the season started whether Cora was back or whether he was gone, what would you say?
Highly unlikely.
Okay. Do you feel the same way now?
Yep.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As do I. How do I phrase this? Is it any more in your mind, is it any more likely now that could change?
No.
It's not.
Nope.
Still the same.
Yep.
Okay. How would you say that overall he's satisfied with the way the operation is functioning this year compared to last? You and I talked a week ago about how they've had a couple of holes now because of injuries.
Yeah.
They've been ravaged by injuries.
Yep.
And that they've gone out and picked up players who are what I would call legitimate big leaguers, not superstars,
yeah,
but legitimate major league players who can go in and play a position and fill a hole for a short period of time. True or untrue?
True.
That they've done that.
Yep.
And is he happy about that relative to other years?
He would have to be. Yeah.
So you haven't talked to him?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, I haven't talked to him about that in particular. I think that was definitely something that bothered him. And I'm assuming that's something that he didn't say that. That's probably something that bothered him last year.
Pretty obvious, right?
And in years past, because of the contrast to Dave Dombrowski. Something went wrong. Sugar Daddy Dave would fix it for Alex. And Heim was not as urgent or urgent at all. And that was ultimately his downfall, was the lack of urgency. And I think Craig Breslow, being a former player, can recognize that, hey, if this guy goes down, we need to plug that hole. Like, if we're going to keep chugging along and they have a ton of injuries, it's not just Tristan Casas. We need to figure something out at first base. There's a lot of injuries, but, they tried internally first. And then, yes, they've had 4/5 of their rotation go down, but they tried internally first, and that worked. Like, Cooper Criswell has been great. But Bobby Dahlbeck struggled at the plate offensively. Defensively, loved them. But they needed some offense at the position, and Breslow went out and did something about it.
So, no, the GM is making moves for the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Is how I put it. Like, in giving, making it clear to them that we're still going to try to compete and put a representative team on the field. Okay, I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just want to get your 2 cents on.
Thank you for checking in, Tony. That was nice of you.
Yeah,
that was very thoughtful.
Just get your 2 cents on the managerial situation.
Sure. Yeah.
He sounds like he's in a good place. Rich and Millbury. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to talk about my memory of Chris Sale.
Okay, go ahead quickly, please.
When he snuck into the Chicago White Sox down the clubhouse and cut up all the uniforms.
Yeah, that didn't happen here. It was a throwback day in Chicago. He got pissed off that they were wearing uncomfortable uniforms and shredded them all like Edward Scissorhands. Gary and Weymouth. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, nice to talk to you, man. First time. My big thing is Chris Sale shutting down the World Series, coming out of the bullpen when he was too hurt and was supposed to start. You got to go back to Pedro when he did it with, coming in earlier in the game against Cleveland. The comparison, those two are amazing. I know it didn't last as long with Sale, but what a heart. How can you not root for the guy? Lasting memory. And he was the last must-see pitcher of this era. For the Red Sox particularly, maybe all of baseball.
Well, I don't know if I go that far. Like all of baseball? I can pick plenty of guys I would see other than Sale. But he was a competitor. I'll give him that.
Brian Bayo for a time last year was must-see.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Jared? Be quick.
No, I'm good. Just thank you, Chris Sale. Excited to watch Chris Sale shove it up our ass tonight.
Yep. He was pitching against the Red Sox. Nick Pivetta, by the way, makes his return. Judd Surratt and Bob Beers coming up. Bruins pregame, top of the hour, followed by Game 2 right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Bruins have a 1-0 series lead. We'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks for joining.
Stay tuned for more of the Baseball Hour.